I'm Silja Calac. I'm a board member of ITFA in charge of regulatory advocacy, and I'm also the treasurer. And then I'm working for Banco Santander, where I'm in charge of private debt mobilization for supply chain finance and documentary trade finance. Now, you have asked me, what is supply chain finance? Supply chain finance is used in many different ways. Sometimes when we use the term, we talk about a specific trade finance technique, and sometimes we are referring to a large concept. In order to avoid confusion, I would like to refer today to the definition which the Global Supply Chain Finance Forum set up in 2016 and which is very clear and comprehensive. It goes as follows. Supply chain finance is the use of financing and risk mitigation practices and techniques to optimize the management of working capital and liquidity invested in the supply chain finance processes and transactions. Supply chain finance is typically applied to open account trade and is triggered by supply chain finance events. Now, what does that mean? What can we learn from that? First of all, it is a portfolio of techniques. It's not just one technique. There are very different possibilities to finance supply chain, starting from a simple forfeiting of a draft up to the very complex asset-based securitization of a receivables program. Then the definition says that it is mostly referring to open account, so invoices, simple invoices. But not only. I have, for instance, a supply chain finance client who finances its supply chain with bills of exchange. Who are the parties in the supply chain finance transaction? There is the seller, the buyer, and the finance partner or the security partner. What do they want to obtain with the supply chain finance? They want to, first of all, the buyer wants to have a stability so that it can make sure that its suppliers will provide the same quality for a long period that they can plan with the goods they receive. At the same time, the partners want to have liquidity in the process, because from the moment when you buy the raw material until the moment you can sell the final product, you have a gap, and this gap must be financed. Then you want risk management. The supplier wants to be sure that the buyer will pay at maturity for the goods he has delivered. And last but not least, we all want to achieve balance sheet efficiency, which leads then to better ratings. The next point, which the definition says, it's event-driven. Throughout the whole supply chain, you have different events, starting from the planning of the procurement to payment orders, putting products in warehouses, supplying, delivering products, issuing invoices, accepting invoices, and so on. At each of these events in the supply chain, different supply chain finance techniques can be applied and they can be combined. Supply chain finance is evolving. It started from the simple forfeiting of a bill of exchange, and now we have a complex deep-tier supply chain finance projects on which ITFA has a specific work stream at the moment. So it is a very interesting field to discover, and it is super useful for all of us.